So to make that beadwad, you're going to need your thread, some needles, a watch head, and then some lockets, 8mm beads, 2mm beads, and then 5mm beads. You're also going to need a plier, a pair of scissors, and then blade. So you thread up your needle, we're going to start with the 5mm beads. So you put one 5mm bead, then you pass the needle through the hole of the watch head. You add another 5mm beads, then you add a 2mm bead. So remember, you start with 5 watch head, 5, and then you add 2mm beads. So in all, you're going to need 6 of the 5mm beads, and then 5 of the 2mm beads. Sorry. So that's it. Now you're going to get 5 of the 2mm beads and 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the yeah. So you're going to tie. My thread was too long, so it was tangling up. Make sure you cut your thread to the length at which you'll be comfortable with. So you make 2 knots at most, and then you have to pull it very hard to make sure that it's really tight. Then you're going to pass your needle through the closest bead to the knot you made, heading towards the watch. So you pass it through the watch hole again, the next bead to the next smallest bead from the watch, and then you cut off the excess thread. Now with the first small beads, you're going to add 3 small beads and pass the needle through the opposite side of where the thread is, the small bead, then pull it out, then pass it through the next small bead to the next small bead, and then pull it out, add another 3 small beads, and then pass it through the opposite side of where the thread is, all the way to the next small bead. Add 3 more. So you're just going to be doing that 3 beads, small beads, and then you pass it through the opposite side of where the thread is in the small bead to the next small bead. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense. Three small beads in the opposite side of where the thread is, and then pass it all the way down to the next small bead. We're going to add another 3 beads, pass it to the opposite side of where the thread is, all the way down to the next small bead. But since there's no small bead, you're going to pass it all the way through all beads, all the way up. Pass it through all beads. all the way up. Sorry, my thread is tangling up again. Gosh, sorry. So I'm going to pass the needle through all the beads all the way up. Then you start with another 5 beads, 5mm bead, and then 2mm beads. So with this one too, at the end of the day, you end up with 6 5mm beads and then 5 2mm beads. Remember, once you reach the top, you always start with a 5mm bead. You start with 5, then 2, 5, 2, 5, 2. At the end, you get 6 of the 5 and then 5 of the 2. And then you pass that needle through the opposite side of the bead where the thread is, and then pass it all the way to the first small bead. Then you're going to start with 3 beads, 3 small beads, passing it through the opposite side of where the thread is in the small bead, all the way up to the next small bead. You put 3 small beads. You pass it through the opposite side all the way to the next small bead. And then 3 more small beads. Pass it all the way to the next small bead. Pass it through the opposite side all the way to the next small bead. Three beads through the opposite side all the way to the bead that you started the second one with, and then bring it all the way up again. When I say up, I mean the 3 beads at the top of the chain you just made. There. And then you start again. 5mm beads, 2mm bead, 5mm bead, 2mm bead. Same process. So you get 6 of the 5mm bead and 5 of the 2mm beads. And then you pass it through the opposite side of where the thread is, and that same small bead. and then pull up. Pass the needle to the next small bead and then start with 3 small beads again. Pass it through the opposite side of where the needle is, the thread is, sorry, and then pass it up. Three small beads. Pass it through the opposite side of where the thread is, all the way up to the first small bead. Now when you get to this point, instead of 3 small beads, you'll be using 2 small beads, because that's the last chain. We're making 3 of those, so when you get to the last one, instead of 3, you make 2 small beads. But then I'm making 3 because that's my wrist size. So after the 2, you go down and then start with 3 again. 3 small beads. So the only place you make 2 at the top where you end. I made 3 of those chains because that's my wrist size. But if you're making it for someone a little bit thicker, you might go with 4. I don't know, 4 or 5. And if the person is like, if you're making it for a kid, you make about 2 of them instead of 3 like I did. So now that you've gone all the way down again, you bring the chain, the needle all the way up, and then we'll start with the 8mm beads. You put the 8mm bead, send your needle across to where you started that small bead, where you started that chain from, and then pull it out through that small bead. Pass it all the way next to the other small bead where they are joined. Realize that where the joining is made, there are 2 beads, one on top, one down. So you pass it through the one on top first and then send it all the way down. Sorry, my camera angling is still too bad. So you put another 8mm bead, and then your small bead down, you pass it through it. Send the needle all the way to the next small bead up, and then you put another 8mm bead, and then the last one, there's not going to be a small bead, so you're going to be passing it inside the watch hole. When you put this 8mm bead, there is no small bead again at the end, so you just pass it through the chain, the watch hole. And that is it. So you need to now pass your needle through a couple of beads away from where you ended it, just so you can make a knot and cut off your thread. So I'm just passing it through a couple of beads. The aim is to make sure that the thread and the knot doesn't show. So you pass it through a couple of beads and then cut it off, and then you're done. So now the place where you made the 2 instead of 3, you're going to pick a locker, open it and fix it there. Open it up, fix it in between those 2 beads that you kept instead of 3. See? Sorry. just like that. Then you put your locker and then close it up with your plier. And then that is it. So you go ahead and do the same for the opposite side too. So with this side, instead of sending the thread all the way up again and then finishing the chain before lining it with the 8mm bead, I just line it along. So instead of passing the needle all the way through the beads, you just pick your 8mm bead and then put it and send the needle all the way up to the top small beads and then make the next chain. Now we're making the next chain. So instead of waiting till you finish all and then line it up, you can just line it as you go. So you make your chain, go ahead and make your side beads. Making the side beads will bring your needle all the way down again, because the side beads are round. You make it all around the chain you just made. So it's going to bring your needle all the way down to where you just started that chain from. So when you get to that side, instead of sending it through beads to go up, you can just pick your 8mm bead and just line it, and then lining it will automatically send you up where you do the next chain. So you put your 8mm bead, line it, and it automatically brings you up to where you need to be. And then you make the next chain. Should I even be calling it chain? Maybe we should call it a flower. I don't know. A flower, a chain, anything. So this is the last flower. So we're going to make the side beads with the small 2mm beads. And then doing that again will send us all the way down. Remember, when you get to the top middle part, since this is the last one, instead of 3 beads, we'll be using 2. 1, 2. And then pass it through the opposite side and then go down again. And then you start with your 3 again. Once you reach your last flower or last chain, I don't know what to call it, last flower, the top side is not going to be 3 small beads, it's going to be 2. That leaves a space for you to put the locket. So 8mm beads all the way up to the first of the 2 beads that you made, and then you pass it through a couple of beads down, and then make a knot, hide your knot between beads, and cut off your excess thread. And there. Now you pick your plier and fix the chain, and then the locket. And we are done. That is a very simple, very cute. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Please remember to subscribe and like